David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And today I'm in studio with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
It's going good. Thank you very much. Got my walk in this morning and ready to go, raring to go here.
All right. Well, today we're going to cover a little bit about some announcements that Electrify America has done. We're going to talk about Tesla's current market share, Ford bringing back a car as an EV.
An English muscle car. I had no idea that the English had a muscle car.
We're going to talk a little bit about Toyota's full self-driving EV.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Europe going back to coal, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's not great news, but I feel we should cover it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's just a weird take on something. In fact, why don't we get the weirdness out of the way first? So, because this is kind of a weird article, and this came is from Reuters, and I'm never really sure. I'm not. Reuters writes a lot about green energy and EVs. But I do feel they strike me as being a little bit of all news stories. They're a little bit anti, I think, on the cars. And because I'll see some things where either they're quoting out or simply they're quoting outdated material. But this is different. This is a different situation. A lot of this has to do with the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Europe's had this problem since the war in Ukraine, in that they're not getting LNG.
They're not getting
Russia anymore.
Russian natural gas, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing was they were going to freeze and all that, and the war happened right after. When it didn't start right after Germany closed all their nuclear power facilities.
Well, no, there was a lag there. That happened. The nuclear plants were closed. I think. I'll have to look it up, but it was.
I was thinking it was 21.
The war started in 2022. In February of 2022.
Yeah, but I was thinking that Germany shuttered that in 21, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyways, so what's happening is Europe is going to replace a lot of their gas shortage for heating homes with cheaper coal, but absolutely carbon-heavy coal. Mm-hmm. And it's getting cheaper. Coal for them is cheaper than gas. Carbon prices, as far as selling carbon credits, have really plummeted in what the money is available for carbon credits. So that was a big deal for a while, and it's really cooled off a lot in regards to people selling the carbon credits because the money's not there anymore. Winter coal margins are favored by carbon price trends. Gas seen rising on tight LNG, looming Russian stop, and Norway's apparently cutting back on LNG as well. So it's kind of interesting news. I mean, we don't see much in the way of stuff going away from renewables so much. I don't know if you watched yesterday's show with Mike Herzog, but Mike did his presentation. So he has a presentation that he does for cities and city governments and people that are overseeing the utilities. And he basically did the presentation for us yesterday on the show.
Oh,
and I had some other grid engineers, one that was retired, and he was commenting on the fact that some of the places that seemed like they were being heavily affected, like data centers being able to get power in Europe, they've solved all the problems because there's so much renewable power going up that they had no issue getting the data centers
needed.
Yeah. And so, I don't want people to think that Europe's going away from renewables. In this particular case, they're going away from LNG. LNG is cleaner than coal. Okay.
Right.
But
about 30% of the CO2 content.
So it's 70% cleaner.
Well, I mean, it's 70% cleaner, but there's 30%. So however you want to look at it, right? But I'm just saying one sounds better than the other. 70% cleaner sounds, but it's a bit of a challenge in that regard. But we're still seeing more renewables. We're seeing more wind, solar,
hydroelectric, I think, is a tough one because it really, I don't know if it's just the enormous cost of setting up dams and things like that to do hydroelectric. That was part of the thing that Mike did in his presentation yesterday. He was discussing some of the costs of what it costs to set up a plant to run LNG versus what it costs to do solar and then add batteries on the back end.
Right.
And obviously it was far cheaper to set up an LNG factory, but then you have to actually pay for the gas.
You have to pay for the gas all the time. The other is free. Yeah.
Well, in theory, one of the things we were discussing is you can normally put the gas burning facility closer to where the energy is being used. Typically, because of how much space a solar array will use, it's typically on dirt cheap land, and so you have to deal with transmission.
So you have to deal with the transmission rights and all of those issues. Yeah.
Which is the same thing when you look at all the giant windmills in Iowa and Nebraska, and the cost there is simply transmission from those locations.
Right.
But
to where it's needed. Exactly.
Right. And I just kind of wanted to cover that.
I should mention, though, that being said, that I just saw a map yesterday where they were showing the cost of energy, and I forget what the metric was, but all of the states around us in that had higher energy costs than did Nebraska and Kansas. We were the low guys. I mean, it was almost like we could, if we were seriously marketing the state, right, we could go up and say, hey, you want low energy prices? In fact, I guess I could say that maybe why we get Google and, and PayPal and all these other people coming here is because we do have those low energy costs. But everybody else around us was, I think we were around mid $400, something like that. And everybody else was, $600, $800, $700, $1,000. So
for what kind of,
and that's what I did not look closely at it. I just saw that and said, wow, we're the lowest in the region. So
when I was spending time trying to place Bitcoin miners, one of the things is like in Nebraska now, our current rate is about 12 cents a kilowatt for residential. But if you're a Bitcoin miner or you're one of these data centers, you're looking for how can you come in and spend 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt. Okay, so they're getting power way cheaper. But in order to do that, a lot of it is they're putting in their own solar array. And so what'll happen is the solar array might be built 50 miles away, and we have the data center here in Omaha, but they might use the solar array
over my shoulder back here.
Right. Yeah. But they might use it to power Lincoln, and then they get the power cheaper here because they're providing the power so cheap over there.
Because, wind and solar are down in the when they bid these power purchase agreements, typically are less than 5 cents a kilowatt, and generally in the 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt. Which is
the state around us that could produce the cheapest electricity was Missouri, and Missouri supplies power to a lot of neighboring states, and they had a lot of alternatives. They had nuclear, they had solar, they had wind, they had LNG. There was a lot of ways that they were producing power. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have hydroelectric there as well, but it's probably a very small part. We know that Washington State in the U.S. is the leader in hydroelectric.
I'll have to look that up. Again, I don't recall when looking at that. I got to find that map now. I don't know where the heck that thing was, but I just glanced at it going through all the news yesterday. But I don't recall Missouri being one of the low-priced ones there. But
it wasn't for residential. It wasn't for residential, but it was if you were coming in doing something much bigger. But in North America, Quebec tends to be the cheapest. Now, Quebec, actually, if you go on a website that's out there, it's like, hey, if you're doing this, we have cheap hydroelectric. We have so much hydroelectric. We need you to come here. We'll sell you power. They advertise it, that they'll sell it at 3.5 cents.
Yep.
But you've got to be buying a lot of damn power. And
well, Yeah, a lot of that gets exported into New York State and the New England area.
Yeah, but
Big customers for that.
Yeah, if you want to mine Bitcoin or you want to, put in a data center, Quebec could possibly be the right place for you if Canadian politics align with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, all right, we need to move on.
Move on.
Our next topic is we're going to talk about Electrify America demands customers leave.
Speaking of electricity.
Speaking of electricity, demands customers leave after charging to 85% in controversial anti-congestion pilot program. Now, one of the key things here is when you're charging your car, it charges the fastest when you're going basically from 10% to 80%. And anything above 80%, it slows down. And it starts getting progressively slower and slower. I heard Musk talk about this. He said, it's basically like you're pulling into a parking lot. And from 10 to 80%, it's like you're pulling into an empty parking lot at the grocery store. And once that parking lot is 80% full, it's a little bit harder to figure out where you're going to park. It takes a little bit more time to park. Okay. And that's basically what's happening is as the parking lot keeps filling up with cars, you keep being a little slower. And when you're trying to get to 100%, you might have to drive down several rows to find an open spot. And I thought it was a really good analogy.
Funny you should mention that because I had that exact experience yesterday. My wife said, "What you may know Grayle's, the ice cream shop on the corner here in town, and I haven't been there in I don't know ages." So she said, "Well, let's go buy some ice cream." And I thought, "Oh, okay, great." So we drive down there, and Wednesday here in Papillion is Farmers Market Day. So there were a lot of people going through Lincoln Park doing farmers market. And I thought, okay. But then as I got up to the center of town, and believe me, our town is very tiny, one main street. And I get up there and I turn the corner where the ice cream place is. And I thought, all the parking spots are full. And I kept driving. Then I got to the library, and the library parking lot was nearly full. I thought, well, I'll pull in. And just by chance, there were 2 spots still open. So, yeah, I identified with that.
Right.
I couldn't believe how many cars were parked downtown. And they were either in the bar, right, Brownies, or they were around the corner at some of the restaurants and things, or they were in the ice cream shop. So, interesting. It's a little tiny town, but boy, were there cars everywhere. It's surprising.
Well, that's like charging your car from 95 to 100% in terms of how the electrons are going in the battery. Yeah, It's a good analogy. But anyways, so it was interesting to see. So this is only in 10 Electrify America locations in California.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is so many people are wanting to use these that they basically, once you charge to 85%, it's going to shut off. You got basically 10 minutes to move your car.
And then they start charging you. I didn't catch what the idle fee was, but they start to now charge you for what they call idle fee or idle time for sitting there and not being charged. You're still paying for the charge. You're just not getting any electricity out of it.
Yeah, but and of course the comments coming back were, it would really help congestion, fixing the chargers. So one of the arguments is there's only four charging stalls and 2 of them aren't running. So they need more. So Electrify America needs more stalls, and then they need to have better uptime. This is a big thing. This is the big difference between Tesla and the other organizations. Is Tesla magically is able to keep their superchargers running at a much better clip than
what were they?
99%
Tesla.
Yeah, they're over 99% right now, and whereas the others are around 80%. That's a pretty big difference, when you're 20 times more likely to have charging issues with another brand than you are with the Tesla, which kind of makes me wonder about our next topic a little bit. So we're going to show this just because this headline is a little deceiving, but this is the kind of crap we deal with a lot of times, why people think it's like, oh, sales are coming down. Tesla's market share of electric cars is collapsing.
Right.
Yes. So they've gone
headline grabber.
Yeah. So for the first time ever, they've gone below 50% of US sales. They dropped to 49.7% of EVs in the second quarter were Tesla.
And year over year, it was down like 20%, but
it was a pretty big deal, from 59.3% to 49.7% year over year. But the thing is, demand has gone up. Now, Tesla has had some issues with sales recently, but I think the industry is having some of that. But there's so many. What was it you were saying? There's now 100 different choices for plug-ins of different sorts.
I'm going to call them electrified vehicles, and that's battery electrics, plug-in hybrids, and I think it included hybrids in that as well. Basically electrified vehicles. 100 models. It just, I remember when I could literally count them on one hand when I started this whole journey, 20 some plus years ago. And now, how do you keep track of them all? I don't. I gave up trying to keep track of them all. I used to, but there are so many models coming now and so many more. What was it? Stellantis said that by next year, 2025 or 2026, they're going to introduce 30 new electric models. Just Stellantis. So, yeah.
I mean, it's really something, and one of the things this article was talking about is right now, Chevy, of all companies, is about to have the Equinox SUV hit. It's going to be, their base model is going to start at 35 grand before you get the 7,500. Yeah, the tax credit.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can get a new Chevy Equinox SUV and for about 27.5.
And then wait till the new Bolt. The new Bolt comes out. That somebody did a report on that here yesterday, day before yesterday. That it's going to be basically roughly the same size as the larger EUV, but they're looking they're looking at it to be priced somewhere around $30,000 as well, and of course be built on the Ultium battery platform. So there'll be another option coming in from Chevrolet that is a popular car.
So Micah here is saying that Tesla just announced they're going to push back the robotaxi reveal, because that was supposed to be on 8/8. So that would be only in a month. That would be 4 weeks from now. SEC opens investigation for FSD data fraud. Oh, interesting. Don't know what all that could contain, but anything with the SEC, you just never know. Musk is pissing off the wrong people in some cases, so who knows? But the robotaxi thing's on them, and we're going to talk a little bit about Toyota in that space here in a minute.
Mike, by the way.
Yeah, but we do appreciate that. Let's see. Our next topic is Ford is bringing back a car called the Capri. And I was probably living in a cave when the old Capri came out.
You weren't old enough.
Yeah. So this boxy electric SUV bears little resemblance to the muscular original. Well, Jim Farley's been talking about how they're going to come back with electric cars, and they're going to make them affordable. Ford is going to do that, which is interesting because at the moment, Ford only sells SUVs and pickup trucks. They don't sell cars. And so, this is their return into the car market. Now, I don't know if this story gives us any pricing. So, it was the 1960s Capri.
Yeah, they have not revealed pricing at this point. The interesting thing is, what surprised me is I never thought of the Capri, which is basically the release market for that was England and Europe. And in England, they offered a whole panoply of is that word? Anyway, they offered them a lot of motor varieties, everything from, four cylinders clear up to V6s. And in England, they were considered muscle cars, which I never thought of England having muscle cars. But hey, they got gearheads over there as much as we do over here. But this is a completely different car. And the interesting thing is that this car is built on the VW MEB platform. so we've got a Ford VW kind of a thing going on here. I don't know how that deal worked, and maybe if somebody can jump in and tell us. But they've done something where they've not only the Capri is being built on the Volkswagen MEB platform, but also apparently the Ford Explorer is being built on on that same platform. So that's interesting synergies that are happening. We won't. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if we'll actually see that car here because I think it's primarily tailored for the European market.
Well, in the European market, they already do an electric Explorer. Yeah. Which we don't have here in the States.
No.
Yeah. It's just like how Chevy with Buick has 4 electric models in China and they don't have any in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a little different. Oh, here's what it
used to look like. Yeah.
And here's a picture of a concept next to the space shuttle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few different.
Do you recall it ever being here in the States? It is. I spent.
This looks familiar. This looks familiar.
Yeah, in the late 1960s, and I lived on a campus out of town and seldom got into town to see, but that was sort of the era when this car was popular in Britain.
Yeah. Let me see if there was. Oh, there's a soccer legend. Eric Cantona has jumped on the bandwagon. Let's see if they give us
his jersey is the same color as the car, or did they make the car the same color as his jersey?
I think they made the car the same color as his jersey, but it says "Je suis Capri." I am Capri.
Ah, je suis. Very good. Parlez-vous français, huh?
No, not very well. I can understand when somebody sometimes asks me a question and I usually can't remember how to respond. So I may be able to figure out in my head what they're saying and translate it in my mind.
We are getting so close to a universal translator. I just saw an article this morning that there is a group that has come out with you talk to the AI in your native language and it will respond. So if you know German, talk to it in German and it responds. You talk to it in American and it can respond to you. And I imagine it'll probably, if you're talking to somebody who's French, then you talk in English and it talks to them and translates into French. I mean, this is like the universal translator in Star Trek, which I think is so cool.
Oh yeah, no question. So our last topic for today is what we know so far about Toyota's full self-driving EV. And I haven't really seen a lot on this one. And I don't know if
no,
you did.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Yeah. So here is this is actually the BZ3X. So, is this what they're going to do? I don't know if that's really it, but they have been working on a full self-driving, just like Tesla, Waymo, lots of other companies have been trying to develop full self-driving cars. Tesla, which has an extensive history of making hybrids, isn't really known for their EVs. They tried in the past with a RAV4 EV models, but they were launched way before the EV boom, which was kind of the problem I've said about some others. Some stuff was released prematurely. Let's see.
I remember well when the RAV4 got released. That was a very popular car with the early EV set. Because
really?
They were mainly in California. Most of those cars went to this California utilities, but some of them got into consumer hands. And they liked it, But then again, remember the technology back then. The state of the art was nickel metal hydride, right? I mean, nobody was even dreaming at that point of powering cars with lithium batteries. So,
I remember when laptops converted.
Yeah.
I remember laptops making the transition in the 90s.
Yeah. So we're the progress we're making is now we're seeing, you know, the advent of sodium ion batteries and metal air batteries, and the pace at which these things are advancing is exciting, and also in some depends on what we're talking about, concerning. You know, when will we see personal robots? You know, and then the era of, you know, Will Smith's iRobot. Who knows?
So Toyota's claim about full self-driving capability should be taken with a pinch of salt, because car makers tend to use the term full self-driving very loosely. Tesla uses the term FSD for what is essentially an advanced driving assistance tech. Tesla's FSD capability in reality only qualifies for SAE level 2, which means the car only offers advanced driving assistance features and zero self-driving capability. Unless you're driving, you know, basically if you're driving down the highway, it'll basically do it for you. Now, this is pictures of the BZ3X. You know, I don't know if this is what to expect. You know, Toyota does have plans to develop more EVs, but the BZ3X has been in development. Toyota hasn't revealed was the fact that it would also be the first car from the brand to feature full self-driving. The company did exactly that recently via the Chinese social media platform Weibo. It's being developed in collaboration with a Chinese company.
You know, I have never been in a full self-driving Tesla, so I cannot speak. I mean, I've, you know, the people that have, and I think you've been in, I believe, but I've never been in one. So I'm still an old school skeptic. I don't know if I want to turn this thing over to, you know, to a bunch of microchips and to take control. I mean, I'm sure they're faster than my brain is, but I'm still leery of the technology, and probably will be to the day I die. So
Toyota's plan is to launch the full self-driving capable version of the BZ3X in 2025. Man, those are just some god-awful names for cars. I really don't know what Toyota is thinking.
I wish somebody, I mean, I guess BMW is the one that when they put the I in front of everything, you know, that helped me identify, because I don't know, you know, I look at a Volvo, an EX30, well, is that electric, or is that a plug-in, or is that just a marketing name? And you're right, Toyotas are terrible. Who came up with these names? I mean,
I mean, you look at the other names like Camry and, you know, Corolla and stuff like that. They put some real thought into those. And
this one is still a research project title, right? Code.
Yeah, essentially.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Help us, you know, here's a plea to car makers. Help us poor guys in the media better identify what your car is. I don't care if you got to put an X in front of it, a Y in front of it, a Z after, whatever, but make it consistent so as I'm scanning through the news, I know if I'm dealing with something that's got a souped up, you know, internal combustion engine running on hydrogen, or whether I've got, you know, a battery electric or fuel cell or whatever it is. Help us understand that. Get your marketing guys to give more thought to this. So anyway, my plea.
Yeah, I got something different here. This was a YouTuber buys the cheapest Cybertruck in the world after it's been completely totaled. Yeah, so something really must have hit this thing. It's like
Sherman Abrams tank or something.
for something to have damaged it that much.
Yeah, wow.
But what's funny is the wheel wells look perfectly fine. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's tough to fix one of these things. But if you figure,
do you remember what was the Blue Thunder where Rory Scheider was flying this spy helicopter, and he set it down on the train track in front of a moving locomotive to destroy the technology? Maybe that's what happened. The driver here was just so disgruntled with the car. He says, I'm just going to park it in front of a UP locomotive.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I've seen other videos where people have been in accidents with the Cybertrucks, and the Cybertruck wasn't even scratched. You know, so this had to have been really hit. Let's see if it gives much information about this. You know, when they range from 82 to 102 in price, 82,000 to 102,000 in price.
Does it say what he gave for it?
I'm not sure if it does. Somebody said, you must be some kind of idiot to spend that kind of money on a refrigerator with wheels.
or there was the guy who was apologizing to the owner because he thought it was a trash dumpster and he threw some trash in the back of it. I mean, you know, I don't know if that's true or just somebody. They
oh, by the way, I saw a gold wrapped Cybertruck a couple days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Yeah, here in town. It was over in Millard.
Oh God. I saw where last month they've sold over 11,000 Cybertrucks.
Yeah, they're selling them pretty well, and they have plenty of demand to fill.
Wow. I was raised at a different time in a different culture because that truck just.
Well, you know what's crazy is I think they're almost out producing Rivian just with that one vehicle.
I know. That's okay. All right. You know, different time, different. You know, I'm an antique human now. I'm a collectible.
Well, there's no question that all Tesla cars are distinctive in their look, right?
Yes.
So
and I love every one of those cars. Every time I see one, God, I love that car.
Yeah. The only thing I can't tell between coming down the road is I can't really tell the Y and the X apart.
No, I agree. The X
That's
being
a challenge.
I think a little larger, yeah.
But it's a little bigger, but not much. You know, it's not dramatically bigger. Let's see if it says what he paid for it. It probably doesn't. But his plan is to see what he can do with it. But
lots of luck.
Yeah, lots of luck with that. Yeah, but that's pretty much what I had to cover for today, Bill.
Okay, well, I mean, like I always say, there's lots of stories. I think last 24 hours, I've dumped something, well over 100 stories, and I haven't even started today. This morning, I spent just adding the 5 Editor's Choice photos, stories. And I've got, I think, when looking at the list of ones to add, I've probably got 80, 90 new stories to add. So this thing just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. I'm going to guess that before this fall will be over 100,000 stories in the database.
That's amazing.
I know. It's just... But it keeps me sharp and it keeps me getting senile.
There you go.
Or I am already there. I don't know. Take your pick.
Yeah. Well, anyways. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for watching.
For tuning in and hearing us blather on. Hopefully you got something helpful and useful out of it. Maybe a few laughs even. So. Yeah, we certainly ramble. Anyways, all right. Everybody have a great day.